Good morning. My name is Brian Heck. I'm the city manager for the city of Springfield. Today, we're here to discuss the shooting incident turned tragic accident that occurred Sunday night into Monday morning in Springfield. First, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of Eric Cole, who lost his life. Today, we will hear comments from Police Chief Lee Graff, Mayor Warren Copeland, Community Police Advisory Team Chair James Bacon, and NAACP President Denise Williams. After comments are made, we will take questions from the media. And in order and effort to control that, we'll kind of start to the right and work our way across the left. That way we're not screaming or yelling questions over each other. That way there's some order to the questions that are coming. That way we can get answers to the questions that are asked. So again, it's unfortunate that we're here before you again. It was 2 weeks ago today that we were here doing a press conference related to gun violence in our community. With that, I will turn it over to Police Chief Lee Graff.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. I want to start, first of all, by expressing my condolences to Eric's family and also my profound regret at Eric's passing. This is never, as many of these as I've done, every one of these incidents involves family and loved ones and friends. And we should always approach these things with that in mind. What I want to do is kind of give you a chronology of events so that we have a clearer idea of what occurred on the night of the 13th, which would be Sunday night. Anything that I mention is in no way, and I want to make this clear, is in no way to besmirch anyone, and certainly not Eric. But this is, but we also have to kind of be clear to kind of understand a little bit what happened Sunday night. I'm going to kind of start a little earlier. We actually had tone drops, and what that means is a tone that goes out across the air for an emergency response, that lives are in jeopardy or lives are in danger, and that implies that officers are to respond in an emergency mode, which is what you think of as lights and siren. Prior to that, we had some reports in the 400 block of West Liberty Avenue of an incident where guns were displayed and then later where shots were fired. This was approximately at 11:16 is when we started to receive those calls PM on the 13th. As part of those calls and part of those dispatch tapes, although this is not confirmed, remember this is citizens calling this in. All that has to be investigated. It was alleged that Eric was out there along with other people and there was some type of disturbance or quarrel. And it was alleged that there were guns being displayed. And then a few minutes later, there was an allegation that shots had been fired. A few minutes later, at 23:22, which is 11:22 p.m., we received calls that there was a person that had been shot in the 1400 block of South Center Boulevard. Officers, there was some confusion in some of the dispatching as to where exactly the address was. They originally were talking about the 1000 block of South Center Street. If you look in the videos that have been released, You can see the officers slow down around the area of Johnny Lytle and Center, which is there by a building, restaurant Little Joe's, the restaurant Mini Mart. And they clarify that the person is actually in the 1400 block of South Center Boulevard. The police vehicles continue. From what we are initially piecing together, remember this is all under investigation. The lead officer was trying to catch the addresses on the house. Eric was lying in the street, as you can see from the videos, and the officer did not see him and struck him with their vehicle. As you can see from the videos, immediately stopped. The officers ran out to render aid to Eric. They were there on the scene. The squad got there. Eric was transported to our regional hospital and care flighted to Miami Valley. He was pronounced deceased after midnight. We believe in follow-up investigations in the 400 block of West Liberty. We have evidence that there was some type of exchange of gunfire. We believe that may be where Eric received a gunshot wound. He had a gunshot wound to his left arm. He had in fact called and had said he had been shot. He was obviously very scared, saying he thought he was dying. From witnesses, he had pulled in shortly before officers arrived on scene there in the backyard of, I believe it was 1363, is in the 1300 block of South Center Boulevard, gotten out of a vehicle, left some items there, talked to a couple of people, and then ran between the houses. And I think that's from that point to where he was lying in the roadway. What has happened as a result of this, of course, we have two different things going on here. We have an investigation on what happened. How was he shot? Whether it occurred on West Liberty or somewhere else. So that investigation continues to see what had happened there. And then, of course, we had the investigation of him being struck by our police vehicle. I was called pretty quickly after this had occurred, the accident. Immediately asked that we call in an outside agency to investigate the accident, in this case, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, which they did. And I would like to thank them for coming there that night and for their assistance. Their investigation's ongoing into the accident. We began to piece all this together, both the scene there on South Center and then later over on Liberty, trying to see exactly what we have. In the morning, first of all, the officer that was involved was placed on administrative leave, and she remains there at this time. An internal affairs investigation was opened up Monday morning or Monday by my hand for our professional standards unit to do that. This is normal in a case like this. And so we will have an internal look at events. We are waiting to see what the Highway Patrol comes up with. We are also waiting, as I'm sure the family is, for the coroner's official report in Montgomery County. I can't give you an exact timeline on that report. As you know, the coroner is very thorough, and they will want to wait for toxicology reports and all those things to come back before they, pronounce an official report. I realize those videos are extremely impactful. They're impactful to me as well. I will say this was, let's talk about the part with the police vehicle striking Eric. This was an accident. That doesn't mean it's okay. It was an accident. This was not an intentional act on the part of the officer. I'm sure of that. I would remind everyone that a camera helps us immensely, whether it be in-car cameras, body cameras, which we are hoping to look at getting into by the end of this summer. But that camera focuses where it's pointed. It is not an indicator of what the officer is seeing. It's not an indicator of where they're looking. So when you see that camera that's mounted on basically the back of what would be in your vehicle or your rear view mirror, it points straight ahead and it doesn't move. Human beings inside vehicles move quite a bit, whether looking side to side, looking down, looking over. I just want to make that clear. That is not through the eyes of an officer. It's very easy in times of stress and under this tragedy to sometimes forget that. We'll investigate this, but I just want to make it clear that there is nothing that would indicate that this was an intentional act on the part of the officer. I've talked very briefly with the family coming in here. Our investigators, of course, will talk to them more at length. We will certainly be transparent as we go through this process. And they are welcome to ask questions as we go through this process at any time, because this is their family member. This is their concern as much as it is this department's, as much as it is our community. What I would ask for, because we know we are living in trying times, is for patience, to allow us to work through this process, and vigilance. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I've always tried to be as transparent as possible. I've charged all the officers under my command to do likewise. So I just, what I want is a community during this tragedy is to work together to make sure that everything that needs to be done is being done, and that we come up with a resolution to these issues that's acceptable, both within legal boundaries, civil boundaries, and within our community standards here in Springfield. So that's all I have for now. We'll have time for questions later. Yeah. So, thank you.
With that, I'll ask our Mayor, Warren Copeland, to say a few remarks.
I have nothing to add in terms of the specifics of this event. What I have to add is that we are so sad about this happening. This is a tragic, tragic event. And we will treat it as such. And we will attempt to find out exactly how it happened and what might be done to keep it from happening ever to anyone else again. I guess my deepest feelings go out to the family, because this has to be a really difficult time for them. And all I can tell you is the people of Springfield share your sorrow, certainly not at your depth, but this is a sad day for all of us. I actually live just a couple blocks from where this happened, so it really comes home to me and my wife. So that's all I have to add. I don't know anything more about the specifics than the chief does, and I can only imagine the deep, deep pain of the family. Thanks for being here today.
One of the things the city did back in August of 2020 was pass an ordinance establishing the Community Police Advisory Team. And that advisory team was set up to be that bridge of communication and transparency with the community, our organization, and specifically the Springfield Police Division. It strengthens the already community-oriented policing philosophy that we have here in our community. With that, I ask the CPAT Chair, James Bacon, for his remarks.
Thanks, Brian. Good morning. I do have some brief prepared comments, and certainly this is a very sad occasion to be here today. One thing about Springfield and living in Springfield, and I've lived in Springfield all my life, it's very hard not to know a lot of people, a lot of families. So when things such as this occur, it impacts you in a different way because you have connections with family members. So I hurt as you hurt, and I sorrow as you sorrow. And on behalf of my family, we certainly are praying for you in regards to that and anything else we can do along the way. As relates to a formal statement, I just want to say on behalf of the only mentioned newly formed Community Police Advisory Team, we want to offer our sincere prayers and condolences to everyone involved and affected this morning. Please know that we grieve along with you, knowing that lives have been changed forever. And we eagerly await an independent, transparent, and fact-based discovery process for all parties so that the healing process can begin, knowing that lives have been forever changed. I just want to conclude by saying this. Please rest assured that we will stay engaged in the discovery of evidence, review of the final external investigatory findings relative to the police actions and all parties involved. So again, we pray grace and peace for all of us as we move through this process, that you held up through that prayer. And we just say, God bless you, God keep you, and heaven smile upon you.
Our organization and community has a strong relationship with our NAACP. Today with us is Denise Williams, the president of our local chapter here in Springfield. Denise, I'll ask for your remarks.
Greetings from NAACP Springfield, NAACP Dayton, Ohio, Dr. President Derek Forward. Greetings from the Ohio State Conference, Mr. President Tom Roberts. Our hearts are heavy. Our hearts are heavy. We will be staying engaged in this situation. We will be opening up an investigation. Well, what have you done so far, President Williams? I've been in contact with the Ohio State President, Tom Roberts, the second Vice President of the state, Derek Forward. We will be staying engaged and we will have full transparency to this entire situation. We will not leave your side, family, until this is over. Now, let me say this. We cannot do our work if there is violence in the streets. We can't do our investigation if there is violence in the streets. So I am calling on you. I'm calling on the community. We must stay calm in order for us to do our due diligence. We cannot have violence in the streets. I want to close by saying I would also be in touch with the Ohio State Patrol. Our office will be. We're going to wait for the coroner's report. And we have been working closely, and I met last night with the CPAT committee. I've spoke several times last night with the chief of police. And as Mr. Heck said to you, we have a very close relationship. So I want to reassure you, NAACP is in this. I am also the third vice for the state of Ohio. So we would have to probably a reporter go up to the governor's office. But to let you know that the NAACP is standing with you, we're praying with you. I talked with the family, so a member of the family last night. And again, I want you to know that we are here. You can call us 937-521-2650. I will be meeting with the team this evening, but I want you to know that we stand with you. We are standing throughout this entire investigation. May God be with you, and may peace be with our community. Thank you.
Thank you to all of those that spoke this morning. Again, I want to extend our thoughts and prayers to the Cole family. I ask for respect for the pain, the suffering, the grief that they're feeling right now. Please respect them during this time, as it's one of the most difficult and challenging times any person would deal with during their lifetime. And we just ask for that peace and God's grace upon them. With that, we're going to open up to the media for questions. I'm assuming a lot of the questions will be directed towards Lee Graff, so I'll ask Lee to actually stand at the podium, and I will moderate. Again, I don't want us yelling over top of each other, asking our questions. Everybody will get an opportunity to ask their questions, and we'll start just one by one to the far right. Ask a question, and then we'll move to the next person, then we'll come back around. So thank you and for your respect in that as well. That's on.
I have two questions. What's the name of the officer involved in the accident? And why wasn't the accident mentioned in the initial police report?
It is, the name of the officer is Amanda Rosales. When you say initial police report, you're talking about reference to the shooting?
Yeah.
Because the accident is a separate incident from the shooting. The accident is reported. The Ohio State Highway Patrol has come out and has done, they're working on what we would call an OH1, which is the official Ohio crash report. So that it has been reported. Now, how quickly that'll be released, that's the Highway Patrol's investigating that. I'm sure they don't want to release a half finished report. So I assume when they get their investigation complete, that'll be available to the media as well as the family and the community.
Just a two questions to the chief. Could you, first of all, just for our purposes, could you spell Amanda's last name so we get that correct? How long has been
Rosales is Rosales. I want to be sure I check that. So let me get back with you too. I don't want to give you the wrong spelling on her last name. She's been with the department for approximately 2 years.
And then I want to give you a chance to respond to just some things we're hearing from the community, from our viewers, that the perception is when this happened Sunday, and after we are 3 days later, it's the first time being talked about publicly. The perception is, well, there might be something to hide or it's negative. What do you say to that? And does that hurt the trust building you constantly have to do with your department and the community here in Springfield?
It's all perception based. I suppose you could say that, we put the media release out yesterday. This is a complicated incident and we're trying to gather facts. We also have a responsibility to discuss this with the family. It was very important. I felt that we needed to talk to the family about this before this came out to the media. No family should ever be faced with finding out tragic facts about a loved one, no offense to you all, on television. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're talking to the family and preparing them for what's to come next. So again, as soon as we were aware of the incident, we started to prepare. We knew we needed to talk to the family. And then of course, at that point, we released things to the media, but we wanted to wait till that was completed first.
driving, how often is that done by police officers? You're saying that they were looking in different places, even though there's also like laptops and other things. If you can just explain a little bit about the police process and what you all are doing while on the roads, and how, if there will be any changes in the future to how you're able to do that job while keeping any pedestrian or other people on the road safe.
Part of the challenge in policing, which is, I suppose, different in many ways from a challenge to the everyday motorist, is that if you take a situation like this, and understand, I'm not excusing this. It's just you asked a question and I'm giving you some information. You're right. There's laptops that obscure vision. There's in-car cameras that obscure vision. But officers are responding in this particular case to an emergency. They're going there to help. They're informed there's a shooting victim, and I'm not going to say racing, but they're certainly going with haste to get to that scene, to get to that victim. There's lights, the overhead lights reflecting off the houses and all this, trying to find an address. It's a little different than when you and I are just simply driving, because of all the requirements of the job, the radio traffic going on, etc. What we try to emphasize with officers in the normal day-to-day is to try not to engage with the laptop computer, just like we would with the motorist, staying off the cell phone, not texting and driving, all these type of things, is to try to stay as aware of your situation as possible. Accidents happen in policing. Again, do not say that to downplay. I'm not being flippant, but I'm saying that yes, accidents occur in policing because of the amount of driving that officers do. They're on the road virtually 7 hours a day. But we try to minimize that by trying to remind officers all the time to be aware of their surroundings and be aware of their circumstances. Officers do take driving courses, of course, in the academy. A lot of that, though, is around the idea of moving vehicles at high speed and maneuvering and that sort of thing. We all have an obligation as motorists, whether it's as part of our job or as just citizens, to be aware of our surroundings. But this happened, and obviously we're going to have to look into it. And obviously, I don't ever want this to happen again. And we're going to have to look at what corrective measures we can do to try to help ensure that. So I hope that answers your question.
Just one more question for you, and then I have a question for Ms. Williams. Does this officer have any record or history of accidents, drunk driving while on the job, or any other events in her background?
Not to my knowledge at this time, but I can tell you that, as I told you, there's been an internal investigation to open up, and I will certainly be part of that investigation. I assure you of that. So if there is anything with that, that will be in the final report. Okay.
I'd ask that if there's other questions for Police Chief Lee Graff, we'll finish that, and then we can also bring up other individuals as well after.
As far, you keep saying it's an accident, but as far as this officer goes, do you expect any kind of disciplinary action other than the fact that she's on administrative leave?
It's way too early to ask that. We're investigating this all the way from what happened to Eric and how he got there and why he was there. I mean, he was shot. He was a victim of a crime. So we have that. But it's just like if you ask me what's going to happen to the person that shot, it's way too early to say any of that. We're investigating this. If corrective actions need to be taken, they will be taken. Maybe that's the best answer I can give you.
And also, my next question, you mentioned that as well. Do you have any idea of what kind of corrective actions, if another officer was in that cruiser, could this be prevented?
Once again, you're right. That's very hypothetical. We're going to deal with this incident, this officer, and what happened. Hassan asked that earlier. The incident report on Eric was referenced to shooting, sir. There is a report on the accident. The Ohio State Highway Patrol is working on that accident report probably as we speak. So there is a report about that as well. I understand, and as we said, there was that delay of piecing everything together, but the family was the first to know. Okay, and I'm going to be real with you. Let me answer your question. And again, what you're asking me to do is predict what's going to happen in an investigation, and that is extremely irresponsible on my part to even go there with you. But I will tell you this, sir. We have citizens that have accidents every day. We have citizens that have hit other citizens, vehicle pedestrian accidents. Okay? And the idea that there's a difference in how that citizen's treated versus the officer, no, that's not going to happen. But let me finish because I don't want to build expectations. When someone is in a roadway or let's say someone walks out in front of your vehicle when you're driving up Limestone and you strike them, that doesn't mean, I think the assumption is you're going to be arrested and you're going to be thrown in prison. That's not true. Okay. I just want to make sure that we understand that. Okay. I hope that answered your question. And I understand everyone's upset and this is a period of grief. I get that. Please understand that. Okay.
I have a question following that. If you were like a civilian and you hit a person, you have to go to court. And I know you don't want to look too far, but would there be a court or would it just be an internal investigation situation for the officer?
Okay. Once again, we're kind of going in the realm of hypothetical. You're assuming that if a citizen hit, say, a pedestrian in the road, that they would go to court. That's not necessarily true. Okay. It's not necessarily true. It all depends on, whether or not where that citizen was or where a vehicle was or where a tree was or anything else. Okay. It's too simple to say that. You're not always at fault in an accident. That's why it's called an accident. Again, I'm not trying to be flippant, but I'm also not a person that's going to come up here and gloss things over and try and give you some unrealistic expectations. So I hope that helps.
I guess I'm saying, in my experience, just accidents, petty accidents, whether I'm at fault or not, I usually have to show up before a judge. So does that not happen as far as police officers?
No. First of all, your experience is incorrect.
Okay.
All right. We have hundreds of accidents in Springfield, unfortunately, all the time. And not everybody ends up in court. That's incorrect. So, but if you're asking, are there special privileges for officers if they commit a crime or they commit a traffic infraction? No. Officers get traffic tickets. Okay. They get issued when there's issues with that, when they have broken the Ohio Revised Code. Okay. So if that's found and that's determined by the OSP, then that'll be taken care of in that way. Okay. Now there's two different things going on here. There's the investigations of whether or not there were driving infractions to the point of ticketing. There's also the other side of the internal investigation as far as just actions of officers. Right. Those are two different things. Okay. So I'm just saying that, they're both playing out kind of simultaneously going in the same direction. Okay?
We're moving across over here. We'll come back this way. Okay.
Chief, just with the investigations that are going on, I just want to clarify that there's three. There's the internal affairs investigation that essentially will determine whether this officer broke professional rules, department policies. There's the crash investigation from the state patrol that determines whether anything about that was criminal. shooting investigation into who shot Mr. Cole. So those are 3 investigations here.
That's a very good summary. That's pretty much what's happening.
And then does any of those 3 or all 3, who reviews those once they're complete? Does the Clark County Prosecutor's Office look at all 3, 2 of the 3? Who reviews them once they're completed?
Yeah, the as far as on the criminal side, as far as Mr. Cole's shooting, the detectives will work on that. If they can identify suspects and end up with probable cause, they'll work closely with the prosecutor's office, as they always do, as far as going forward on whoever did that. As far as the OSP, they will be in touch with, I would assume, probably our prosecutors initially, but if something like that was going to happen because it's an officer, one of the things we try to do is go with an outside prosecutor, right? So that there's no kind of problem with familiarity between officers and prosecutors. And as far as the internal investigation, it goes through a number of eyes, of course. Initially, the professional standards unit, which you might call the internal affairs unit. And then, of course, my own, the city manager, CPAT will have a hand in being able to review the process, to look at it and make sure that they're comfortable with the way the investigation was going. And as Denise talked about just as well, when it's completed and all that, it's a public document. And the community itself and the family itself would have access to that and be able to look at it. Well, the accident happened in the city, so the jurisdiction would be within the city court system, right? Like Mark Ross's office, he's a prosecutor for municipal court. But like I said, if there was anything to go forward with, I would bet they would refer to a special prosecutor from outside the county.
Best of your knowledge, is this the first time your department has investigated something similar to this with either a fatal or non-fatal outcome?
No, it's not. We've had investigations, and remember now, I wasn't chief of police, but just in my knowledge of 25 years here, we've had an investigation of a man that was struck by a police vehicle up on Mechanicsburg. That was probably a decade ago, somewhere in that region. We can certainly find that out. And we've had accidents where officers have struck civilians. It's not a common thing at all, but it's happened. As far as a fatality, that's the only fatality that I can think of. So, and by the way, just to be clear, until we get the coroner's report and all this, it would be presumptuous of any of us to assume that that's what happened. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm saying we need to make sure we're doing this fact-based and not on assumption.
Question for Chief.
And I know the shooting investigation very early on. Do you have any indication that any of the shootings that we've been up here for lately are connected to this? Do you know?
No, I'm not. We're not saying this is linked to another one. Now, when I say that, I don't know that, or if I did, quite frankly, it's investigative, and I really wouldn't discuss it anyway. But yeah, it's part of the issue of gun violence that we're seeing in our community. And of course, we're going to react to it and investigate it as strongly as we can to find out what happened.
Hi, my name is Julius Bailey, Professor at Wittenberg University, Director of Justice Law and Public Policy. I wanted to go back to your fact-based piece. And respectfully, I was asked this question. You made reference, this happens in cases like this, of a toxicology report that was going to be done on the victim. And I just, again, just to help you or at least to help the audience, I want to know, was there a breathalyzer done on the officer? And if so, what was the result? And in the internal investigation, will there be an official blood toxicology report in that case too? Just for clarification, because oftentimes we blame victims, and here we have a situation where we need to be clear. If you all followed policy, gave her a breathalyzer, and then eventually gave her a blood test.
Okay. First of all, doctor, you're assuming that's policy, and it isn't. But sir, it'd be no different than if you got involved in an accident today and there were no indicators that you were under the influence of alcohol and or drug of abuse, then would you expect me to do a breathalyzer test on you? Was that question asked? Immediately. A captain went to the scene, talked to the officer, worked with the officer. There were no indicators of any kind of impairment of any kind. So no, and our policy states that in the case that that is suspected, that can be administered, but that's not the case here. And we don't have any indication that it was.
Because you perceived that she didn't need it. You did not engage in the activity. I want to be clear, that's all.
Okay, and I understand that.
Perceived that she
You asked me a question and I
didn't-
told you there was not. But again, to jump to the assumption that because there is not a breathalyzer or a blood test, that means the officer was drunk is very incorrect, because it would be the same with any citizen. And I'm answering.
Breathalyzer and or toxicology report engaged. That was the only question I had.
There was not.
Any other questions for the chief?
I have one question going on what you're saying. Why is there a breathalyzer required for the victim? He's laying on the ground.
Sir, there,
Toxicology.
that's,
Why do you need to do a toxicology on him? He's laying down. I mean, you said you're doing one on
sir, no, I understand what you're saying.
So how-
First of all,
why? And the second question is this going to be a case of the immunity?
are you talking about qualified immunity?
Yes, you know exactly what I'm asking. Is this going to be a case of that?
That is outside of my bailiwick. It is truly. Now listen, what's going to happen is I can't predict what's going to happen between the family and the city. And sir, what we're going to do is provide what we can on the investigative side, right? That's gone through the legal departments and things like that. That's not me. All right. Let me answer your other question about the breathalyzer. Yeah. That's when the coroner, that's a coroner procedure that they draw blood and test for all those things. I suppose that's a question for the coroner. We have no control over that, nor did we ask for that. Once again, if there were indicators that there was some type of problem like that, yes. Sir, again, every time a citizen gets in an accident, we do not require them to do a breathalyzer test.
She never once offered to say that. She didn't have to implicate. She didn't have to implicate. She didn't have to implicate herself. But she never once shared with none of us that he had been.
Why was it hidden?
Why was that? Well, I have a question. I want to know if someone still will continue to do your job, knowing that you just ran someone over. And she was still out there, and she was doing her job. She had no remorse. She had no remorse.
We're not going to get into that. Those are hypothetical questions. We can talk to you outside.
You don't want to
So.
talk about that.
Are there any other questions for the police chief?
They blew smoke. They blew smoke.
The answer is that your officer ran over my son and with no remorse, and nothing was said when I ran down to the scene. Your officer told me, and it was not a female officer. It was a man officer. Your son just been shot. Never once was I told that an officer ran over my son.
Why?
2 days later. It
Why
was a
did we
2
hide
day
it?
late.
Why did we
I
hide it?
should have been warned to that the same night.
Why did we hide stuff?
But the hospital told me that my son was ran over.
That's
The
not being
gunshot
transparent.
wound was not his death. It was because being ran over. And your officer died.
We're being transparent with everything here. Why was that hidden?
She claims she didn't see him. She slowed down, center and hair. She slowed down twice. She stopped at Little Joe's. Then she stopped again in front of that tree and she kept going. There's no way that she did not see him. And I seen the video from center and hair when she ran him over. She had to see him. There's no way. I watched her. I watched the whole video. She stopped. She slowed down. Then she went and she ran him over. Like, excuse my she did not freaking see him. I seen him before. She ran him over. He had on a bright white shirt like me with light blue jeans. He never had on dark clothes. My brother made a 911 call. He was on the phone with dispatch saying he was in the middle of the street. We found out 2 days later he was ran over. We thinking the gun people that shot him ran him over, but the Springfield Police Department ran him over. So yes, we're upset. You know what I mean? Like, we all upset because y'all see it as an accident. I don't. I watched the video. She stopped twice, y'all. Y'all seen what we see. Y'all see it. They see it, and everybody out here sees it.
Where was her big light at?
She didn't need no big light. Her big light was on the ground. From center to Perrin, you seen a shadow.
If she was looking for addresses.
A shadow was laying in the street, y'all. They seen it. Y'all know it. I don't want to be rude. I'm not rude. I'm hurt right now. That was my big brother. You know what I mean? Like,
And your officer downtown yesterday said she got distracted because there was another shooting. So it's not making no sense.
y'all gotta make sense to us. Like, y'all gotta feel where we coming from. The video is clear as daylight. You know what I mean? Yes, y'all told us. You know what I mean? Y'all had to tell us, but it took 2 days for y'all to tell us.
Why?
You know,
Why?
2 whole days.
Why? Why wasn't it in the original
It never was
report?
in the report.
There was
That's
nothing
the
about an
biggest
accident.
mistake. If the shooting took place, he
Nothing.
got shot and plus got ran over. It's wrong. One report. It shouldn't be 2 separate reports. I gotta investigate this report and that one too. No, it's all one report because it was all called in as one by the victim.
You said that the police officer, the captain came out there. Why wasn't she removed from the scene?
It's just horrible,
Why was she
y'all.
still able to work the scene? And how could she still be able to work the scene knowing that she ran someone over?
And we don't know report it.
And was it verified? If the hospital told us he was ran over, that's killed him, we would never knew.
Why wasn't she taking off the scene right then and there?
Let's let Lee answer that.
I don't think y'all get it.
Just like saying nothing is just like lying.
It's
Let
like,
him
No.
answer.
Not telling the whole truth is a lie.
Let him answer. I wanna know.
All right.
because it took for the hospital to tell us, not Springfield Police Department. The hospital told us he was ran over. He was ran over and that's what killed him.
Let him answer.
They patched up his gunshot wound. He was fine where he had been hit. Meaning he would have been sore and not feeling too good for a little while. But what took his life was his lungs being swept.
Okay.
I just don't believe that y'all believe that she didn't see him. I don't believe in my heart that y'all believe in y'all's heart that she didn't see him. Because I seen him from Perrin and Center, from her body camera. From her body camera, I seen him from Center and Perrin. I told that detective yesterday, it's a lie. She seen him. I see him. And she hadn't even ran my brother over yet. I seen him clear as daylight. She seen him. I'm pretty sure her every police vehicle is equipped for GPS. She knew where the 400 block was. She knew where it was. When she approached that, when she pulled over in front of Little Joe, she knew where that 400 block was.
And
She slowed down twice, dog.
Let's-
She works that area. That's her area. It's her area. She knew where the 400 block was.
So again, why wasn't she taken off of the
She
scene?
stayed on that scene. She worked her own crime scene that she
To
felt
cover up.
commit.
To
And it
cover
was
up.
a cover up.
Can I?
Never in the
To me,
report.
I feel as though she should
Can-
have been taken off that scene soon as that captain got there. So why wasn't she? Why wasn't she?
Okay. Can I?
Y'all gotta-
Let me answer to.
I wanna know.
Let me answer to a couple things. Okay. All right.
Y'all see it.
But we're-
Y'all see
but
it.
I'm not-
Let's let us answer, okay? Let him talk, okay?
I'm not going to be able to give you definitive answers on this entire situation. It has to be investigated.
Okay, but why wasn't
But
she taken off the scene? You're not
if we made a mistake on not getting her out of that scene, that's my responsibility.
Why
And-
wasn't it reported?
You
Why
felt
wasn't it
that.
reported?
I,
That's the thing. You felt that because y'all were supposed to protect that.
Please let him answer to your question, okay? I understand that. Let him answer, okay?
Okay. But as I said, then ma'am, if we made mistakes there, that's my responsibility. All right? And I'm sorry if that's bringing up questions in your mind as far as that's concerned, and I understand that. I do want to clarify a couple things. That wasn't a body camera video. That was an in-car camera video. We do not have body cameras. Then the officer made a mistake. Then the officer made a mistake. Ma'am. But the fact is that was an in-car camera video. And also,
Ma'am, please let him answer the questions.
Nothing. Was no fucking accident.
Y'all wanna get the gentleman that shot my son, but you don't wanna do nothing with this officer. All you got her for is administrative leave. She should have been put off of her job and not paid at all.
I wanna know too,
My son's dead because of your
so
office.
say that when the toxicology report comes back and maybe he did have some alcohol in his system, what will that have to do with him being ran over?
ma'am, I'm not implying that that did. I'm saying that's just the coroners go through that whole process. Because it's not us, ma'am, and the coroner's not going to release that report until they have all that stuff completed. No, ma'am, I did not. So the other thing is too that again,
How long has she been on the other clock? What time did she clock in?
what time?
She clock in?
She's works a midnight shift, so they come in at 10 and 11. So
So she wasn't tired. She just had clocked home between 10 and 11. Because it was 11:22. So she wasn't tired.
As a police officer, aren't you supposed to be like aware of your surroundings when you're coming up to, you know, aren't you supposed to be aware?
yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm not denying that. I'm not trying to. Folks, understand. A lot of questions are coming at me. I get it. All right. I can't answer. I know that.
More than if it was your family member, you would want answers.
I know that.
So we want answers. We're not trying to be mean, we're not trying to be nasty. We
It's
just want to know what happened. Because at this point, it's looking like y'all failed us. Y'all supposed to protect us. He called for protection. He called to get help.
I agree.
He got ran over.
People that
He
were
got
supposed to
killed.
help him killed him.
So at this point, y'all failed us. Y'all failed us. So, I mean.
Not taking no blame off the people that shot him either.
Let's, for the press conference purposes, we'll, if the family would stay around and we can meet with you after.
Provided to this family, straight up, because they have a lot of reason to feel the way they do with what's going on in the country today. We've been trying to do that in Springfield. So far, we got had a good deal. But now the situation has changed. Springfield is on the map. We don't need stories. We don't need excuses. We want to know exactly what happened, and we can deal with that. But all this ring around the roses, we don't want that. We see what happened. It's like she said, everybody see what happened. Why? That's the question. Why did it happen? We don't need that. We don't want that. You said it over, Brian said it over and over again. Springfield is for each of us, working together, stepping forward. If you want to step forward, you better start today. If not, you're going to lose the community that you're trying to represent.
You had a question for Denise. Denise, would you like to?
Sure. Basically following all of that, what support is there for the family or liaison to help with communication and getting answers? Is that what the NAACP is planning to do?
Listen, I understand the emotion. I get it, Mom. This is why Springfield has an NAACP. the baddest, biggest, largest civil rights organization in the world. We will make sure of transparency. That's part of our job. We would have every piece of paper with the information on it. That's our job. We're going to stay in it with you, Mom, until the end. Yes, ma'am.
What we want to know is why was not told at the scene that she ran over my son.
And that is one thing that we will look into, among other things. Yes, ma'am.
I want the officers held accountable, just like if they get the suspect.
Yes,
they
ma'am.
gonna hold them accountable.
Yes, ma'am. This is what we do. We stay in it. We ask the questions. I'll take your concerns back to the team here. We will get answers. That's why we're in it. And if I need help, I will have the state involved. They will be here. So I've already been in contact with Michael Wright. We have a meeting this week. So listen, I got you. NAACP, I have a team of 17. We have you. But you have to trust us to do what we need to do to get the answers for you. You have to trust me as your president of NAACP. We will get all the answers. Our arms spread wide. I get it. Could you let us do what we are here to do? We have to stay calm because we can't get our work done if we worried about what's going on in the streets. Mom, I'm asking you to trust the NAACP. We got this. No, ma'am, I know, but I just I wanted to reassure you that we got this. You can call me anytime with your questions. We will ask all of the hard questions, and I guarantee you there will be complete transparency. Complete. So our work has started yesterday. I made a lot of calls yesterday. I met with a couple of folks on this team yesterday and last night. We got you. But once again, we cannot do our job if there is activity in the streets. We can't. But what's I understand, but I just don't want our community to act on because I'm reading traffic on that Facebook. That's what I'm going by. But I want that's right. I want the family to know that NAACP is in it. We will get justice. I guarantee you. We will definitely get justice. Again, we are in it, and we'll be in it until the end. Any other questions for me? Thank you.
And I assure you, we all want answers to those questions that you have. We all do. We all up here want those questions. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing the investigation. That's why the investigation of the traffic incident is separate and is being done by an outside agency. We requested that. We wanted an outside agency to do that incident report. We wanted them to do the investigation. So it's a third party eye looking at it. And we want the exact same answers that you're asking too. And we're going to do that through the internal investigation. We're going to do that. The Ohio State Patrol is going to do that through their traffic accident investigation. That will happen through those investigations. We ask for patience while we do that so we can get all the answers to those questions that are being asked. With that, we're going to conclude the press conference for today. I thank the media that came today. Again, out of respect for the family, let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. The pain, the suffering, the grief that they're feeling. Let's be respectful for that and ask for God's grace for them. Thank you.